Hi guys, today I'm going to do my October and November wrap up. Sorry if I'm a bit shouty during this video, but I have an ear infection and I just can't hear. I feel like I'm underwater all the time, so I have no grasp of how loud I am. So I could be too loud, I could be too quiet, there could be noise downstairs that I just can't hear. So sorry about that. I didn't do a wrap up last month because I only read 2 things, so I didn't really see the point, so I thought I would just combine it with this month. So the one book I read in its entirety in October was Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. I did a whole spoiler-free review of this where I talked about all my thoughts and kind of how they were quite complicated because of my relationship with John Green's writing and kind of expectations and reality with this book. I did really enjoy it, but I think I liked the first half was a 5-star and the second half was a 3 or 4 stars, so it was kind of a mixed bag. I did really enjoy aspects of it, like the mental illness part and the kind of varying relationship dynamics that happened, but I wasn't a massive fan of the love subplot thing, the romance. Didn't really get it. There was bits that I didn't particularly enjoy, and I felt like it kind of just wrapped up a little bit too quickly and wasn't super climactic, and it just felt like it needed another 100 pages to bulk it out a little bit. But saying that, the writing was beautiful. There was a lot of metaphors and symbolism going on, which I always really appreciate, and I just love the whole tone of this. So I did really enjoy it, and I think I gave it 5 stars initially, but it's actually more of a 4 stars. And the next book I read was Queen of Shadows by Sarah J Maas, which is not this book, but I lent that book to my boyfriend Robin, so I'm just using this as a placeholder for the Throne of Glass series. I read most of Queen of Shadows in October, and in November I just finished the very first half of it, and I've got to admit I really enjoyed it, which I was so happy about because you guys know that I loved Throne of Glass so much when it first came out, and then I really struggled. I didn't like Heir of Fire, and it took too long for me to read Heir of Fire and Queen of Shadows. I felt really out of the series and I was really considering just not carrying on with it, but then Queen of Shadows I really loved. Characters were all back together for the most part. Selena or Aelin was kind of back to full form, and I really loved Rowan in this book because I didn't really like him in Heir of Fire. I loved him so much in this book. Chaol was a bit disappointing because his character's just kind of that ship has now sailed. Yeah, he had a sad storyline in this book. No spoilers obviously, but I was kind of I'm sad that him and Selena Aelin didn't quite make up in the way I would have liked, but it was okay, and I just found this book really action-packed. I couldn't put it down, and I cannot wait to actually jump into Empire of Storms for realsies. Hopefully really soon. I think me and Amy might buddy read this because she also needs to read it, and because we were talking so much about Queen of Shadows it made her really want to pick up Empire of Storms, and I really want to be caught up when the final book comes out, so it'd be great to read this start of 2018, read Tower of Dawn, have a few months break, and then be able to jump in to the final book. So I gave Queen of Shadows I think 5 stars. It wasn't perfect, but in terms of enjoyment factor, I loved it so much. After that I wanted a little bit of a break from fantasy, and I kind of wanted to read some smaller quick things, so I picked up The Female of the Species by Mindy McGuinness, which I read in 3 or 4 days. I absolutely flew through it. It's not a particularly long book, but it was just really gripping. It's basically about this girl called Alex Craft whose sister has been brutally raped and murdered basically in the past, I think a year ago or something, to when this book is set, and it's made her very sensitive to kind of discussions and issues around rape and sexual abuse, but also it's made her very vengeful, shall we say. So this is kind of about how she kills people who have raped and sexually abused people. It's not too much it's not a murder mystery, or it's not an action-packed she's a serial killer. It's kind of, a lot of it feels like a contemporary. It's about her making friends for the first time and kind of opening up to people, about how she doesn't feel normal, and kind of about feminism as a whole. She encounters boys just kind of humping basketballs in PE and everyone laughing at them, and it's well, if girls did that they would just probably get really told off and everyone would look at them really strangely. And it's just kind of little hints at things like that, including women being cruel to other women and kind of female friendships, and it just had basically every single little bit of feminism packed into this short book. It was written really well, And yeah, I just loved this. It wasn't like enjoyable because a lot of it's quite dark and horrible, but as a contemporary it was a really good one, and as a kind of feminism book, I haven't read many of them, but I thought it did a really good job. And it was less on the serial killer side, but that doesn't feel random either. It just is a very well put together book, and I gave this 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. And then I wanted something completely different again, so I picked up The Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie, because the new film has come out about a month ago now and everyone was talking about it and seeing it, but I was like, for once I really want to read the book before the film, and I bought this gorgeous copy really recently, and I thought, if I see that film, I'm just not going to read the book, at least not for like 20 years. So I was like, it's not very long, it has big font, like let's just fly through it. And I actually listened to an audiobook for most of this, read by David Suchet, who plays Poirot in the kind of original films and TV series. And I also really enjoyed this book, I think more than I expected to. I haven't ever read an Agatha Christie book before, I hadn't really read any classics for a while, and yeah, I think it was a little bit slow to get going, especially because I wasn't really familiar with the Poirot character. So at the start it kind of felt like there was references to maybe the book that comes before this. I was a little bit confused with who was who and whatever, and also there's a lot of characters in this book. I don't know how many, it's probably like at least 10 plus characters, so it was kind of difficult getting used to who was who and the names and stuff. But once I got my head around that, I really enjoyed the mystery part of it. It has a pretty simple format in that he interviews everyone on the train like in turn, and then kind of re-interviews some of them, and then it's all kind of pieced together at the end. But it definitely kept me guessing. I did sort of guess who did it, but sort of by accident. I almost said it as a joke, kind of talking to Robin about it, and he didn't like give anything away, which was nice of him. But yeah, when I was right by accident, I was like, oh wow, okay. It was definitely a really good twist, and it just felt very well put together. The writing style felt a little bit simple at times, and actually Poirot, the character, was my least favourite thing about this book. I just found him quite annoying, and I don't know. I'm sure David Suchet did a great way of narrating it if you like his Poirot, but I just found him very like weird and not very likeable and strange, which I think is kind of the point, but I don't know, it didn't really click with me, him as a character. But yeah, the book as a whole was really good, and I gave it 4 stars. And my last complete read for November was The Silver Mask by Holly Black and Cassandra Clare. This is book 4 in the Magisterium series, so obviously I can't talk too much about it in detail without spoiling the other books. This is a middle grade fantasy book set in like a magic school, and in a lot of ways it resembles Harry Potter because there's like a main trio, and it basically follows the character who would almost be Ron if it was Harry Potter, which is kind of a nice subversion in that there's like the chosen one or whatever and it isn't him, and there's this like enemy of death in the past who wanted to defeat death and all this kind of stuff, and there's things to do with souls which are almost like Horcruxes. So on paper it's very similar, but I do think these books are very different. The characterization's pretty different, and the way the series is going is completely different, and I was just kind of okay about these books. And then the third one, the Bronze Key, I really enjoyed. It had a lot of twists and turns I didn't see coming, and the ending was like crazy, which made me really want to jump into this as soon as it came out. But I gotta admit, I was kind of disappointed by this. It wasn't bad, but like with Harry Potter, the series kind of grows with the characters, and as the story gets mature, the writing gets more mature and the characters do. But honestly, they're all meant to be kind of what, like 14, 15 in this book, which you can sort of tell from the pictures compared to the first book, but it's still written and they still talk like they're about 11, 10, and it's kind of a bit annoying now, because there's like even a little bit of a romance in this book, and it feels creepy because they don't seem as old as they're actually meant to be. This is kind of the equivalent to like Goblet of Fire, so it's like when the romance starts happening. But in a way, yeah, I mean, it's super short, and I think they're just keeping it as a middle grade series, which is fine, but it just felt okay. There was a bit in the middle that I really enjoyed, which I can't say because it's a big spoiler. But yeah, there were elements that I liked, but the ending felt a bit rushed. I actually already can't properly remember what happened, and I literally read this book a week ago. So yeah, it was pretty forgettable. It wasn't awful, but I only gave it 3 stars. And then I've spent the past week reading Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. I must say I'm filming this a few days early, so there's still like nearly a week left of November. But I'm including this because I'm not going to finish it in November. I've only read about 70 pages because I'm trying to listen to the audiobook for this on my commute to and from work. But I'm finding it quite difficult because it's really well read, don't get me wrong, but I think it's just the way the book is written. It has a lot of footnotes on like nearly every page. I don't know if you can see there's like quite a big one there. And I think the narrator just reads those out as if they were kind of embedded in the text like normal, which it doesn't sound awkward, but it means the footnotes are quite like factual detail that you could skip, and it means the story feels like it's skipping around quite a lot. It's like action, then like a paragraph of fact and history of the world. And it just makes it quite hard to process because I just have not read enough of this book to kind of understand how the world works yet. So to have these sort of info dumps every now and again is just a bit confusing, and I think reading it on paper physically wouldn't be that bad because you kind of know it was a footnote and you could kind of separate it from the actual flow of the story. And also it jumps back and forth in time a lot, which I don't mind, but it means I just really have to be on the ball when I'm listening to it, and when it's 7 o'clock in the morning on a Monday, like, it's not exactly, my mind isn't at its peak. So I think I would prefer to read this physically, but it's just quite a big hefty book to take to and from work with me. But saying all of that, I am really enjoying it. Like, the first chapter or two blew my mind because it was just so cleverly structured between like this sex scene and this murder scene, and kind of comparing the two with like using the exact same phrases but they just had completely different meanings with the context. And the writing is like so good, it's ridiculous. I kind of don't realise I'm reading a well written book until it happens, and I'm like, oh, this is how books can be written. And it's definitely like a big change from The Silver Mask, which felt really simplified. So yeah, this is really good, and I can see it being a 5-star book. I just need to be in the right mindset to like engross into it. So I think I just need like another 100 pages and I'll be a bit more up to speed with the world, and then I can kind of fully get into it. So I'm going to make it my goal for like the next week to properly try and get like halfway through this, and then hopefully the second half won't be as tough to read. So those are all the books I read in October and November. I'm going to do my TBR in a separate video just because I didn't want this to be too long, because it was already 2 months worth of wrap up. But let me know down below if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them, and also let me know how your reading month went. I will see you guys on the next video. Bye!